What are you doing here? Why are you selling yams? You should be in school.
They say a father's love can move mountains. They say money can buy happiness. But what happens when a man has all the money in the world, yet loses the one person who made him human? What happens when grief blinds him so completely that he cannot see the suffering happening right under his roof? One wealthy man learned this lesson the hardest way possible. On a scorching afternoon in Lagos, his entire world collapsed when he saw a small figure selling yams on the roadside. A figure he recognized, a figure that should have been safe at home, a figure that broke his heart into a million pieces. Sit back and find out as we delve into this heart-wrenching story. The sun was setting over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Traffic moved slowly through the busy streets. Car horns blared endlessly. Motorcycles weaved dangerously between vehicles, their engines roaring. Street vendors called out to potential customers, their voices competing with the chaos. The air was thick with heat, dust, and the exhaustion that comes at the end of a long Nigerian workday. Inside a sleek black Mercedes-Benz S-Class, Joseph Obi sat in the back seat, his body present but his mind far away. He was 38 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, with a neatly trimmed beard that was beginning to show hints of grey. He wore an expensive red suit that was custom-tailored to perfection, but it hung loosely on his frame now. He had lost weight, too much weight. His tie was slightly undone, hanging carelessly around his neck. His face showed the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. Lines of worry creased his forehead. Joseph opened his eyes and stared out the window again. The car was moving slowly through a residential area now, stuck behind a molubus that belched black smoke into the already polluted air. Small shops lined the dirt road, provision stores, hairdressing salons, phone repair shops. People walked along the dusty road carrying bags and children. Motorcycles zipped past dangerously close to pedestrians. Children played football in an empty lot between two buildings, kicking a deflated ball and laughing. Then he saw her, a small figure standing by the roadside under the brutal afternoon sun. A little girl with a large wooden tray balanced precariously on her small head. The tray was piled high with yams, big dirty yams that must have weighed at least 15 kilograms. She wore an old dress that was at least 2 sizes too big for her. The dress had once been beautiful. Joseph recognized it immediately. It was one of Emily's dresses, one that Grace had bought for her birthday last year. But now it was dirty, stained with sweat and dust. The little girl's feet were bare, covered in dirt and dust from the road. No shoes, no slippers, nothing. Her small feet stood on the hot tar road that must have been burning her skin. Her face was covered in sweat. Rivers of it ran down her cheeks, dripping from her chin. Her small chest heaved with exhaustion. Her thin arms were wrapped around the wooden tray, trying to keep it steady on her head. She looked tired. Beyond tired. She looked exhausted, broken, defeated, and she looked exactly like Grace. Joseph's heart stopped beating. His breath caught in his throat like he was choking. His entire body went cold despite the heat. He leaned forward in his seat, squinting through the tinted window, praying he was wrong, praying his eyes were playing tricks on him, praying it was just some random child who happened to look like his daughter. But as the car moved closer, there was no denying the truth. It was Emily, his daughter, his princess, his baby girl, the only thing he had left of Grace. Standing on the roadside in the scorching Lagos sun, selling yams like a common street child, like an orphan, like someone who had no family, like someone who had no one to protect her. "No," Joseph whispered, his voice barely audible. His hands began to shake. "No, no, no. It cannot be. God, please, please tell me that is not my daughter." But it was. He knew it was. He would recognize Emily anywhere in the world. "Stop the car," he suddenly shouted at the top of his lungs, his voice exploding through the quiet vehicle like a gunshot. Mr. Tunde slammed on the brakes instinctively. The car screeched to a violent halt, the tires squealing against the asphalt. The sudden stop threw Joseph forward against his seatbelt. "Sir, what is wrong?" Mr. Tunde asked, his voice filled with alarm. He had never heard his boss shout like that. "Sir, are you okay? Is something wrong?" But Joseph did not answer. He could not answer. His hand fumbled frantically with the door handle. He threw open the door before the car had fully stopped. He jumped out, his expensive leather shoes hitting the dusty road. He did not care. He did not care about his suit. He did not care about the dirt. He did not care about anything except getting to that little girl. He ran. He ran faster than he had run in years. His heart was pounding like a drum in his chest. His breath came in gasps. His vision was blurred with tears that were already forming. "Emily!" he called out, his voice cracking with emotion. "Emily!" The little girl standing by the roadside turned slowly at the sound of her name. Her small body swayed dangerously from the weight of the tray on her head. When she saw him running toward her, her eyes went wide with shock and terror. Pure terror. The wooden tray wobbled dangerously on her head. She grabbed it quickly with both hands to steady it, her small fingers gripping the rough wood. "Daddy?" she whispered, her voice so small and frightened it broke his heart into a million pieces. Joseph reached her and immediately lifted the heavy tray off her head. He set it down roughly on the ground, not caring that some of the yams rolled off into the dirt. His hands were shaking uncontrollably as he knelt down in front of her on the hot, dirty road. His expensive suit was now covered in dust. He did not care. He touched her face with trembling hands. Her skin was burning hot, not from fever, but from standing under the Nigerian sun for God knows how long. Sweat poured down her small face. Her lips were dry and cracked, bleeding in some places from dehydration. Her eyes were sunken, with dark circles underneath that no 5-year-old child should ever have. "Emily," Joseph said, his voice shaking so badly he could barely speak. Tears were now streaming openly down his face. "Emily, my baby, what are you doing here? What are you doing selling yams? Where is Angela? Where is your stepmother? What happened?" Emily looked down at her dirty bare feet. Her whole body began to tremble. Her small hands shook at her sides. Tears filled her big brown eyes, Grace's eyes, and began to spill down her already wet cheeks. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Daddy, please do not be angry with me, please." "Angry?" Joseph repeated, his voice rising with confusion and pain. "Why would I be angry with you? Emily, tell me what is happening. Tell me right now." Emily's lips trembled, her small chest heaved with suppressed sobs. "Mommy told me to come here. Mummy Angela told me to sell the yams. She said I have to sell all of them. She said if I do not sell every single one, she will lock me in the dark room again. She said I cannot come home until they are all gone. She said if I tell you, something very bad will happen to me." Joseph felt like someone had reached into his chest and ripped out his heart. He could not breathe. The world around him started spinning. The sounds of the busy road, the car horns, the shouting vendors, the motorcycle engines, all faded into a distant buzz. "What?" he said, his voice barely a whisper. "What do you mean she told you to sell yams? What dark room? Emily, what are you talking about?" But Emily was crying too hard now to answer. Her small body shook violently with sobs. Her shoulders heaved up and down, her hands covered her face as tears poured through her fingers. Joseph's own tears fell freely now. He did not try to stop them. He pulled Emily into his arms and held her tight against his chest. She felt so small, so fragile, so light, too light. When was the last time this child had eaten a proper meal? When was the last time someone had held her like this? When was the last time someone had told her she was loved? "Mr. Tunde," Joseph shouted over his shoulder toward the car. "Mr. Tunde, open the door. Open the door right now." The elderly driver, who had been watching the scene in confused shock, jumped into action. He rushed to open the back door of the Mercedes-Benz, his own eyes wet with tears at what he was witnessing. Joseph stood up, still holding Emily in his arms. He realized with horror how light she was. And 5-year-old child should not be this light. She weighed almost nothing. He could feel her ribs through the thin, dirty dress. He could feel every bone in her small back. He carried her quickly to the car and climbed into the back seat, still cradling her in his lap like she was a baby. She clung to him desperately, her small arms wrapping around his neck, her face buried in his shoulder, her body shaking with sobs. "Drive home," Joseph said to Mr. Tunde, his voice cold and hard in a way the driver had never heard before. "Drive home right now, and drive fast." "Yes, sir," Mr. Tunde said immediately. He jumped into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled back into traffic. The car sped off, leaving the wooden tray and yams abandoned on the roadside. Inside the car, Joseph held Emily close. He stroked her braided hair gently, feeling the beads that Angela must have put in recently. His own tears fell silently onto her head, mixing with her sweat. "Emily, my baby, my precious princess," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Talk to me, please. I need you to tell me everything. Tell me what has been happening. I promise you, I will not be angry. I will not raise my voice. Just tell me the truth. Tell Daddy the truth." Emily lifted her head slowly from his shoulder. Her face was a mess of tears, sweat, and mucus. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked at him with those big brown eyes, and in them, Joseph saw pain that no child should ever know. "Daddy," she began, her voice shaking and breaking with every word. "Daddy, Mommy Angela is mean to me." Joseph felt his heart shatter into even smaller pieces. "What do you mean she is mean to you, princess? What does she do?" Emily sniffled and wiped her nose with the back of her small hand. "She makes me clean the whole house every single day. She wakes me up at 5 o'clock in the morning before you leave for work. She gives me a bucket and soap and makes me wash all the floors. I have to mop the living room, the dining room, all the bedrooms, even her bedroom. Then I have to clean the bathrooms. All of them. She stands there and watches me. If I miss even a small spot, she hits me on my back with her slipper." Joseph's jaw clenched so tight it hurt. His hands tightened into fists. "What else?" he managed to say, though his voice was shaking with barely controlled rage. "She makes me wash all the dishes," Emily continued, tears still flowing, "every single plate, every single pot. Even though we have Mary the housemaid to do it. Angela says I need to learn discipline. She says I am a spoiled rich girl who needs to learn how the real world works. My hands hurt, Daddy. The soap makes my skin burn. Look." She held up her small hands toward him. Joseph took them gently in his own large hands and felt his stomach turn. Her palms were rough and calloused. They were red and raw in places with small cuts and blisters. These were not the hands of a 5-year-old girl. These were the hands of someone who had been doing hard labor. "Oh God," Joseph whispered, bringing her hands to his lips and kissing them gently. "Oh my God. Emily, what else? Tell me everything. Do not leave anything out." Emily's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "She does not let me eat, Daddy. She says I am too fat. She says I eat too much food. She says food costs money and I do not deserve it because I am useless. Sometimes she gives me only one small piece of bread for the whole day. Just one piece. With nothing to drink. My stomach hurts all the time, Daddy. I am always so hungry. Sometimes I am so hungry I cannot sleep at night." Joseph felt like he was going to be sick. He pulled Emily closer as if he could somehow protect her from the horror she was describing. "And when you go to work," Emily continued, her sobs growing stronger, "she locks me in the storage room. The dark one downstairs with no windows, the one where we keep the old furniture. It is so dark in there, Daddy. So dark, I cannot see anything. There are rats. I hear them moving around. I scream for help, but nobody hears me. She leaves me there for hours and hours, sometimes the whole day. She says I am a bad girl. She says I need to learn discipline. She says bad children need to be punished." Joseph was crying openly now, not caring that he was a grown man, not caring that he was supposed to be strong. His baby girl had been suffering like this, and he had been too blind to see it. "She hits me, Daddy," Emily whispered. "She slaps my face when I do something wrong. She pinches my arms really hard. She twists my ears until they hurt so much. Sometimes she uses a belt. She makes me pull down my dress and she hits my back with a belt. She says if I cry, she will hit me more. So I try not to cry. I try to be strong. But it hurts so much." Joseph's entire body was shaking now, with grief, with rage, with guilt so heavy he thought it might crush him. "Why did you not tell me?" he asked, his voice breaking completely. "Why did you not tell me any of this? I am your father. I am supposed to protect you. Why did you not come to me?" Emily looked up at him with those heartbreaking eyes. "Because she said if I tell you, she will kill me," Emily whispered, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "She said she will hurt me so badly that I will never wake up. She said she will put poison in my food. She said she will push me down the stairs and make it look like an accident. She said then she will be the only one left with you and she will have all your money. She said nobody will believe me anyway because I am just a stupid child and she is an adult. She said you will believe her, not me. She said you do not love me anymore because I remind you too much of Mommy Grace." That last sentence destroyed Joseph completely. He let out a sob that came from the deepest part of his soul. He buried his face in Emily's hair and cried like he had not cried since they buried Grace. "No," he said firmly through his tears. "No, Emily, that is not true. That is a lie. That is a wicked, evil lie. I love you. I love you more than anything in this world. You are my daughter. You are my princess. You are all I have left of your mother. I am so sorry. I am so sorry I was not there. I am sorry I did not see what was happening. I am sorry I failed you. But I promise you, baby girl, I swear to you on your mother's grave, that woman will never, ever touch you again. Do you hear me? Never. I will protect you. I will keep you safe. I will never let anyone hurt you again." Emily wrapped her small arms tightly around his neck and buried her face in his shoulder. They held each other and cried together as the car sped through Lagos traffic toward home. Joseph was a billionaire. He owned Obi Properties Limited, the largest real estate development company in West Africa. His company had built shopping malls, hotels, residential estates, and office complexes across Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa. He had houses in Banana Island, Ikoyi, and Lekki. He had luxury cars that most people only saw in magazines. He had investments that generated millions of naira while he slept. His bank accounts held numbers with so many zeros that counting them seemed pointless. But none of it mattered anymore, not since Grace died, his wife, his partner, his best friend. His reason for waking up each morning with a smile, his reason for believing that life was beautiful. She had been gone for 1 year, 2 months, and 17 days. But who was counting? Joseph was. Every single day felt like an eternity. Every single night felt like drowning in an ocean of grief. Joseph stared out the tinted window, watching the city pass by in a meaningless blur. His mind drifted back to her face. Her beautiful face with those warm brown eyes that sparkled when she laughed, the way her dimples appeared when she smiled. Her laugh. God, he missed her laugh. It was like music, like wind chimes on a breezy afternoon. The way she would touch his hand gently when he was stressed about a business deal. The way she would wrap her arms around him from behind while he worked at his home office. The way she would sing old gospel songs while cooking jollof rice in the kitchen, swaying her hips to her own rhythm. A tear rolled down his cheek slowly. He quickly wiped it away with the back of his hand, ashamed even though no one was watching. His driver, Mr. Tunde, a man in his mid-50s with kind eyes and greying hair, glanced at him through the rear-view mirror but said nothing. He had been working for Joseph for 15 years. He had learned to give his boss space during these quiet, painful moments. He had watched Joseph transform from a vibrant, energetic man into this hollow shell. Joseph's phone buzzed loudly in his pocket, breaking the silence. He pulled it out and looked at the screen. A message from his assistant, Jennifer. "Sir, the Singapore investors confirmed. Deal is worth $45 million. Papers ready for signing tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Congratulations." Joseph stared at the message for a long moment. $45 million. Once upon a time, news like this would have made him jump out of his seat with excitement. He would have called Grace immediately. She would have screamed with joy. They would have celebrated with expensive wine and laughter. Now, he felt nothing. He typed back a simple, emotionless "okay" and put the phone back in his pocket. Business used to excite him. Business used to be his passion. Now it felt empty, meaningless, just numbers on paper, just another deal in an endless stream of deals. What was the point of making all this money if he could not share it with the woman he loved? "Mr. Tunde," Joseph said softly, his voice hoarse from not speaking all day. "Yes, sir?" Mr. Tunde replied respectfully. "Take the long route home today. Drive through Ikeja, drive through anywhere, just drive. I am not ready to go back to that house yet." "Yes, sir, I understand, sir." The car turned smoothly onto a different road, moving away from the direct route to their Banana Island mansion. They drove through the crowded streets of Ikeja, past markets where women sold vegetables and fish, past bus stops where tired workers waited for transportation, past street corners where young men played drafts under dim streetlights. Joseph closed his eyes and leaned his head back against the soft leather seat. The cool air from the air conditioning blew gently against his face, but it did nothing to ease the burning pain in his chest. "Grace," he whispered to himself, his voice cracking. "I am so tired. I am so tired. I miss you so much. Every day without you feels like torture. How am I supposed to keep going? How am I supposed to keep living when half of my heart is buried 6 feet underground?" His mind drifted to their daughter, Emily, 5 years old. A beautiful little girl with caramel-colored skin, big brown eyes just like her mother's, and natural hair that Grace used to braid with colorful beads. Emily was a perfect mixture of both of them. She had Grace's gentle spirit and his stubbornness. She had Grace's creativity and his intelligence. She was the only piece of Grace he had left in this world. After Grace died from that sudden illness that the doctors could not explain, after they lowered her casket into the ground at Ikoyi Cemetery, after the last guest left their home following the funeral, Joseph had fallen into a deep, dark pit of depression. He could not function, he could not think, he could not breathe without feeling like his lungs were filled with broken glass. So he did what broken men do. He ran, he buried himself in work. He left the house at 5 in the morning before Emily woke up. He came back at 11 at night after she had gone to bed. He threw himself into business deals, meetings, conferences, anything to avoid being alone with his thoughts. Anything to avoid looking at Emily and seeing Grace's face staring back at him. He barely spoke to Emily anymore. He could not. Every time he looked at her, he saw Grace. Every time she smiled, he remembered Grace's smile. Every time she called him Daddy, he heard Grace's voice saying, "Joseph, you are going to be such a wonderful father." The pain was too much, so he avoided her. He paid the nanny to take care of her. He paid the cooks to feed her. He paid the tutors to teach her. He threw money at the problem because that was all he knew how to do. He knew he was failing her. He knew she needed him. He knew Grace would be disappointed in him. But he did not know how to be a father without Grace by his side. He did not know how to hold his daughter's hand when his own hands were shaking with grief. He did not know how to tell her bedtime stories when his throat closed up every time he tried to speak. He was drowning, and he was too weak to swim. Then, 6 months ago, a woman named Angela Chukwuka came into their lives. Angela claimed she had been Grace's close friend from their university days at the University of Lagos. Joseph vaguely remembered Grace mentioning an Angela once or twice, but he had never met her before. She was 32 years old, attractive in a calculated way, with straightened hair that fell past her shoulders, light-skinned with obvious bleaching cream usage, and always dressed in expensive clothes and heavy makeup. She started visiting their home about a month after the funeral. She would show up with bags of food, jollof rice, fried rice, chicken, moi, everything. She would claim she was just checking on them, just making sure they were okay. "Joseph, I know how hard this must be for you," she would say, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Grace was my best friend. Losing her has destroyed me. I cannot imagine what you are going through." She offered to help with Emily. She would take Emily to the park. She would help her with homework. She would braid her hair. She was always there, always available, always helpful. "Joseph, you do not have to do this alone," she would say, placing her hand on his arm in a way that made him uncomfortable. "Let me help you. Let me help Emily. That poor child needs a mother figure in her life. She needs a woman's touch. Grace would have wanted someone to take care of her baby." Joseph had been too broken to think clearly, too exhausted to question her motives, too drowning in grief to see the manipulation. He thought maybe Angela was right. Maybe Emily did need a woman in her life. Maybe marrying Angela would give his daughter the stability she desperately needed. So 4 months ago, in a small ceremony at the Ikoyi registry with only 2 witnesses present, he married her. There was no joy, no celebration, no dancing, no laughter, just papers signed and vows spoken in monotone voices. Joseph did it for Emily, only for Emily. He told himself he was being a good father. He told himself Grace would understand. "I am doing this for you, my princess," he had told Emily the night before the registry ceremony. They were sitting in her pink bedroom, filled with dolls and stuffed animals that she no longer played with. "Angela will take care of you when I am not home. She will make sure you eat. She will help you with school. She will be there for you. Do you understand?" Emily had looked at him with big, sad eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 unspoken words. Her small lips had trembled, but she said nothing. She only nodded slowly and looked down at her hands folded in her lap. Joseph had kissed her forehead and left the room quickly, unable to bear the sadness in her eyes. Now, as Joseph sat in the car driving through Lagos traffic, he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. Angela seemed nice enough on the surface. She smiled. She cooked elaborate meals. She kept the house spotlessly clean. She attended social events with him and played the role of the perfect wife. But there was something wrong. Something he could not quite put his finger on. Emily had changed. She had become quiet. Too quiet. The little girl who used to dance around the house singing Disney songs was now silent. The little girl who used to talk endlessly about her friends at school now barely spoke at all. She no longer ran to hug him when he came home from work. She no longer asked him to read her stories. She barely made eye contact with anyone, and she had lost weight. A lot of weight. Her small face looked gaunt, her arms looked thin, her school uniform hung loosely on her tiny frame. "She is just adjusting," Angela would say whenever Joseph asked about it, waving her hand dismissively. "She is still grieving her mother. It is normal for children to lose their appetite when they are sad. Give her time, Joseph. These things take time." But was it normal? Was it normal for a child to look so afraid all the time? Was it normal for her to flinch whenever Angela walked into the room? Was it normal for her to eat her dinner in complete silence, her eyes fixed on her plate as if she was terrified to look up? Joseph had noticed these things, but he had ignored them. He had told himself he was being paranoid. He had told himself Angela knew better than him about raising children. He had told himself he was too broken to trust his own judgment. But the unease had been growing inside him like cancer. Something was very, very wrong. And now his only child was being treated like a slave and was being punished for no reason. Mr. Tunda drove in silence, his own face wet with tears. In his 15 years of working for Joseph, he had never witnessed anything so heartbreaking. The Mercedes-Benz pulled into the long driveway of their massive mansion in Banana Island. The house was enormous, painted white and cream with tall pillars and large windows. The compound was filled with beautiful gardens, fountains, and manicured lawns. It looked like a paradise. But Joseph now knew it had been a prison for his daughter. The gates opened automatically. The car stopped in front of the main entrance. Joseph did not wait for Mr. Tunde to open his door. He kicked it open himself and stepped out, still carrying Emily in his arms. She clung to him like she was afraid if she let go, he would disappear. He walked straight toward the massive front door and kicked it open with his foot. It slammed against the wall with a loud bang that echoed through the house. "Angela!" he roared at the top of his lungs. His voice was like thunder, shaking the very walls of the house. "Angela, get down here right now! Angela!" From upstairs, there was the sound of hurried footsteps across the marble floor, high heels clicking rapidly. Then Angela appeared at the top of the grand staircase. She was a woman in her early 30s, light-skinned from years of bleaching, with long straightened hair that fell past her shoulders. She wore a tight blue dress that showed off her figure and expensive gold jewelry around her neck and wrists. She had a white apron tied around her waist. Her face was made up with heavy makeup, foundation, eyeshadow, lipstick, everything. When she saw Joseph standing in the foyer holding Emily, her eyes widened in surprise. But then her face quickly arranged itself into a sweet, innocent smile. "Joseph," she said, her voice sugary and fake, "you are home early. What a nice surprise. I was just preparing dinner. I am making your favorite, pepper soup with goat meat." She started walking down the stairs slowly, her heels clicking on the marble steps. Is everything okay? Why are you holding Emily like that? Did something happen at work? Joseph's eyes were like fire. He stared at her with such intensity that she actually paused on the stairs. Come down here, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Come down here right now. Angela continued down the stairs, her smile wavering slightly. Joseph, you are scaring me. What is wrong? Talk to me. She reached the bottom of the stairs and stood a few feet away from him, her hands clasped in front of her innocently. What is wrong? Joseph repeated, his voice rising with each word. What is wrong? I will tell you what is wrong, Angela. I will tell you exactly what is wrong. I found Emily selling yams on the street. On the street, like a beggar, like an orphan, like she has no home, like she has no father. Angela's eyes widened. She looked at Emily, then back at Joseph. She put her hand over her mouth in an exaggerated expression of shock. What? That is impossible, she said, shaking her head vigorously. That cannot be true. Emily has been home all day with me. I do not know what you are talking about, Joseph. Maybe you saw someone else. Maybe you made a mistake. Do not lie to me. Joseph's voice exploded through the house like a bomb. The servants, Mary the housemaid, Taiwo the cook, and the security guard all appeared in doorways, drawn by the shouting. I saw her with my own eyes, Joseph continued, his voice shaking with rage. She was standing on the roadside under the hot sun with a tray of yams on her head. My daughter, my 5-year-old daughter, barefoot, dressed in rags, covered in sweat, exhausted, starving. And you want to stand here and lie to my face? Angela's expression changed from shock to confusion to concern, all calculated, all fake. Joseph, I swear to you, I do not understand. Maybe Emily snuck out while I was in the kitchen cooking. You know how children are these days. They can be very sneaky. They do things without telling adults. I had no idea she left the house. I would never allow such a thing. Liar! The scream came from Emily, still in her father's arms. She lifted her head from his shoulder and pointed at Angela with her small finger. Her voice, though small, was filled with courage born from desperation. You told me to go. You woke me up this morning. You gave me those yams. You said I have to sell all of them. You said if I do not sell them, you will lock me in the dark room for 2 whole days with no food. You said you will beat me with the belt until I cannot walk. You are lying. You are a liar. Angela turned to Emily with wide eyes, her face now showing fake hurt. Emily, why are you saying these terrible things? I have done nothing but love you and care for you. Why are you trying to turn your father against me? This is so hurtful. Because you are mean, Emily shouted, her voice growing stronger. You hurt me, you starve me, you lock me in the dark room. You make me clean the whole house. You hit me with your belt. You pinch me. You slap my face. You pull my hair. You do not give me food. You said if I tell Daddy, you will kill me. You said you will poison me. You said you only married Daddy for his money. Angela's face went pale for just a second before she recovered. She turned to Joseph with tears suddenly appearing in her eyes. Perfect, calculated tears. Joseph, please, she said, her voice trembling dramatically. Please, you have to believe me. I do not know why Emily is saying these horrible things. None of this is true. I have been nothing but kind to her. I love her like my own daughter. Maybe she is confused. Maybe she is not well. Maybe she is having mental problems from grief. Losing her mother was very traumatic. Maybe she needs to see a psychiatrist. Maybe she is having delusions and imagining things that never happened. Joseph stepped closer to Angela. His face was hard as stone. His eyes were cold as ice. She is not confused, he said, his voice deadly quiet. She is not having delusions. She is telling the truth, and you know it. No, Joseph, please listen, Angela started. I see it now, Joseph interrupted, his voice filled with disgust. I see everything now. You never cared about Emily. You never cared about me. You only wanted the money. You only wanted to be Mrs. Joseph Obi. You saw a grieving widower and you saw an opportunity. You used my pain. You used my daughter's pain. You pretended to be Grace's friend. You wormed your way into our lives. And I was too blind with grief to see what you really were. Angela's sweet mask began to slip. Her eyes turned colder. "Fine," she said, her voice losing its sugary tone. "Fine, yes, I made her do some chores." So what? That child was spoiled rotten. Someone needed to teach her discipline. Someone needed to show her that life is not all toys and dolls and fancy dresses. I was preparing her for the real world. Preparing her? Joseph's voice rose again. You call starving a child preparation? You call beating a child with a belt preparation? You call locking a 5-year-old in a dark room preparation? You are sick, you are evil, you are a monster. I was teaching her, Angela shouted back, her true nature finally showing. You are too soft. You were going to raise a useless, spoiled brat. Someone had to be the parent. You were never here. You were always at work. I was the one taking care of everything. Taking care of everything, Joseph repeated, his voice shaking. You call torturing my daughter taking care of things? Get out of my house right now. Angela laughed. It was a cold, bitter, cruel laugh. She reached into the pocket of her apron and pulled out a folded stack of papers. She waved them in Joseph's face. Oh, you think it is that easy? She said, her voice now dripping with venom. You think you can just throw me out? Look at this, Joseph. Look at these papers. Do you remember signing these 3 months ago? Do you remember? Joseph's face went pale. He did remember. Angela had brought him some documents. She said they were just formalities, just legal paperwork to make her officially Emily's guardian in case something happened to him. He had been so tired that day, so distracted, so drowning in work and grief. He had barely read them. He had just signed where she told him to sign. These papers, Angela continued, her voice triumphant, give me legal custody of Emily. They make me her official guardian. I get full custody of her. And I also get control of your entire estate until she turns 18. Your lawyers approved it. It is all legal, all official, all binding. She smiled cruelly. So you see, Joseph, you cannot just kick me out. If you want me gone, you will have to go to court. You will have to fight for your own daughter. And trust me, I will make it ugly. I will tell the court you are an unfit father. I will tell them you abandoned Emily after her mother died. I will tell them you are mentally unstable. I will tell them you are violent. I will bring witnesses. I will bring evidence. I will destroy you in court. And when I am done, Emily will be mine. And so will your money. Every single naira. She turned toward the door, then looked back with a smirk. I will be staying at the Echo Hotel until the court date. My lawyer will contact you. Enjoy your daughter while you can, Joseph. Soon she will belong to me. The door slammed shut behind her, leaving a terrible silence in the house. Joseph stood frozen in the middle of the living room. His entire world had just collapsed completely. Again. Emily buried her face in his neck and sobbed. Daddy, I am scared. I am so scared. What if she takes me away from you? What if I have to go live with her? She will kill me, Daddy. I know she will kill me. Joseph held his daughter tighter. His own tears fell into her hair. That will never happen, my princess, he whispered, though his own heart was filled with fear. I promise you, I swear on your mother's grave. I will fight for you with everything I have. I will not let that woman take you from me. Never. Do you hear me? Never. But even as he said those words, a cold fear gripped his heart. What if he lost? What if the court believed Angela? What if they took his daughter away? What if he lost Emily the same way he had lost Grace? The thought was too terrible to bear. He carried Emily upstairs to her bedroom. The room was exactly as Grace had decorated it, pink walls, white furniture, shelves filled with books and dolls, a canopy bed with princess curtains. He laid her gently on the bed. Are you hungry, princess? He asked softly. Emily nodded weakly. Yes, Daddy, I am so hungry. My stomach hurts. Taiwo, Joseph called out. Taiwo, please bring food, bring everything, jollof rice, chicken, plantain, everything. Within minutes, the cook brought up trays of food. Joseph sat with Emily and watched her eat. She ate slowly at first, as if her stomach had forgotten how to process proper food. Then she ate more eagerly, tears still running down her face as she ate. When she was done, Joseph drew her a warm bath. He helped her wash, seeing all the bruises on her small body for the first time. Purple and yellow marks on her arms from pinching, red welts on her back from the belt. His heart broke all over again with each new mark he discovered. He dressed her in clean pajamas, braided her hair gently, and tucked her into bed. He lay down beside her, holding her close. "I love you, Emily," he whispered. "I love you so, so much. And I am so sorry. I am so sorry I was not there to protect you, but from now on, I will be. I promise you that." Emily looked up at him with exhausted eyes. "Do you really promise, Daddy? You will not let her take me?" "I really promise, my princess. I will fight for you with everything I have." "Okay, Daddy, I believe you." Her eyes closed slowly, exhaustion finally taking over. Joseph watched her sleep, his heart heavy with determination. Tomorrow he would find the best lawyer in Nigeria. Tomorrow he would begin the fight of his life. But tonight he would hold his daughter and make sure she knew she was safe. At least for tonight, she was safe. After Emily finally fell into a deep, exhausted sleep, Joseph carefully untangled himself from her small arms. He kissed her forehead gently, pulled the princess blanket up to her chin, and left the room quietly, leaving the door slightly open so he could hear her if she woke up. He walked down the hallway, his expensive shoes making soft sounds on the marble floor. His body felt heavy, like someone had tied weights to his limbs. His head pounded with a migraine that threatened to split his skull open. But he could not rest. Not yet. There was too much to do. Joseph entered his study and closed the door behind him. He walked to the desk and collapsed into the leather chair, his face falling into his hands. For several minutes, he just sat there in the dim light from the desk lamp, trying to process everything that had happened. "Grace," he whispered into the empty room, his voice cracking. "Grace, I failed her. I failed our baby girl. I let that monster into our home. I let her hurt Emily. What kind of father am I? What kind of man am I?" He opened his laptop with shaking hands and began typing furiously. He needed the best lawyer in Lagos. No, in all of Nigeria. Money was not an issue. He would spend every naira he had to protect his daughter. He searched through his contacts, his mind racing. Chief Adeyemi. The man was a legend in family law. He had never lost a custody case in 30 years. Joseph grabbed his phone and dialed the number, not caring that it was almost midnight. "Chief Adeyemi, this is Joseph Obi. I need your help. It is an emergency. My daughter. I need to fight for custody of my daughter. Please, I will pay whatever you ask. Just help me." As he spoke to the lawyer, explaining everything that had happened, his hands clenched into fists. "I do not care what it costs," Joseph said into the phone, his voice hard as steel. "I do not care how long it takes. I will fight this woman with everything I have. She will not take my daughter from me. She will not win." Meanwhile, across the city at the Echo Hotel, Angela Chukwuka sat in her luxury suite, a glass of expensive red wine in her hand. She was still wearing her tight yellow dress. She sat on the plush white couch, her legs crossed elegantly, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. She took a slow sip of wine and laughed softly to herself. Everything had gone exactly according to plan. Well, almost everything. She had not expected Joseph to find Emily selling yams today. That had been unfortunate timing, but it did not matter. The papers were signed. The legal documents were solid. Her lawyer had already assured her that custody would be hers. "Stupid man," Angela said out loud to the empty room, swirling the wine in her glass. Stupid, grieving, pathetic man. It was almost too easy. She thought back to how it had all begun. Grace had never been her friend. They had not even spoken since university. But when Angela saw Grace's obituary in the newspaper, she had seen an opportunity. A wealthy widower drowning in grief. A man too broken to think clearly. A man with a massive fortune and a young daughter. All she had to do was show up at the funeral, claim to be Grace's best friend, and play the role of the caring, concerned friend who just wanted to help. Bring food. Take care of the child. Be there when he needed someone. Slowly worming her way into his life. Into his home. Into his bed. The marriage had been the final piece. Once she became Mrs. Joseph Obi, once those custody papers were signed, the trap was complete. She owned him, she owned the child, she owned access to millions of naira. As for Emily, Angela had never wanted the brat around anyway. The child was annoying, always crying for her dead mother, always looking at Angela with those suspicious eyes. So Angela had made her life miserable. The chores, the beatings, the dark room, the starvation. It was all to break her spirit, to make her obedient, to remind her who was in control. And if Joseph fought for custody in court, Angela would destroy him. She had already prepared her story. The grieving widower who abandoned his daughter, the unstable man who threw himself into work and ignored his child, the violent husband who attacked her today in front of servants. She had witnesses, she had evidence, she had everything she needed. Soon, Angela said, raising her wine glass in a mock toast to the Lagos skyline, "Everything will be mine, the house, the money, the company, everything. And there is nothing Joseph Obi can do to stop me." She drained the rest of her wine, set the glass down on the marble table, and smiled coldly. In her mind, she had already won. To be continued. My dear viewers, what do you think about this emotional story so far? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. I would love to read from you. And guess what? In a few days, I will upload the continuation of this touching story. So make sure you subscribe to my channel and turn on your notification bell so you will be notified immediately the next part drops. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching.